My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. Happy Valentine's Day week. I was just realizing that this week that this episode is coming out on is the week of Valentine's Day, which falls on Friday the 14th. And I was thinking about what to publish as an episode for the podcast this week. And I looked down my list of ideas for episode topics, and I realized that there was a topic inspired by a reading I had with a psychic that would be perfect for this. And I will go into a little bit of what that reading entailed, because there's something that the psychic said that has stuck with me ever since that reading, that kind of surprised me, and I want to challenge what the psychic said. But let's first talk about romance, being on a spiritual journey, because I know that many of you listening are people who want to tap more into your intuition, want to be able to connect with your loved ones in a way that feels to you more easy. And I've been asked the question, how do I tap into mediumship? How do I talk to my loved ones? How do I hear from them? And it all really comes down, let's start here, okay? It all really comes down to trusting what you are receiving. So if you pray to a loved one and say, hey, mom, just talk to them. I know I say this all the time, listeners, and if you're hearing this podcast for the first time through this episode, this is what I usually say. Talk to your loved ones like you're talking on the phone. Hey, mom, I really miss you. I love you. Hope you're doing good up there. Hope everything's going fine. How can I see more signs from you? How can I see more signs from you? And then allow yourself to have a quiet moment. Don't try to think. Don't try to think of anything specific. But if a thought comes up all of a sudden, let's say the thought of your mother's favorite music, and it just comes to you, hold on to that. Maybe that is your answer. It takes a lot of practice to learn how to distinguish between what you are thinking up versus what spirit is having you think. It takes practice, and practice makes progress. So be easy on yourself. Now, with all that said about tapping into your intuition, tapping into mediumship, connecting with your loved ones, when it comes to romance, as you are progressing in your spiritual journey, as you are learning to tap more into your intuition, what does that say, or what does that mean for your romantic relationships? For one, I think that it helps you become a better partner if you apply your intuition in the most healthy way. I think that also, I'll say hi to Sella, people on YouTube. Sella just peeked her head up. I think it does help you become a more empathetic partner, hopefully. It doesn't mean that you can read your partner's thoughts. Although maybe if you can, then you can, but you have to respect a boundary to a certain extent, right? You can't just go on and read your partner's thoughts. But I think the more you work on yourself as a soul on this human journey, the better. I think naturally, if you're open to it and open to the challenges that come with this journey, the better you show up as a human being in your relationships, not just romantic, but across the board. And in your romantic relationships and just in dating, maybe if you are dating and you're trying to find your life partner, maybe now your search tool, your inner search tool, your inner filter for what you're comfortable being in a relationship with in terms of the qualities, of a person, maybe they get sharper, those skills, that search tool. As Jillian, I think it's called Jillian on Love. That's the name of the podcast. Jillian says your person picker, your picker gets better. So I think when it comes to your spiritual journey, I believe that the more you work on yourself, the more you face the self limitations you have about yourself and your life and your journey, the more open you become to what can be yours. But also the more I think the better you are at recognizing what exactly it is you want. And there is a catch, not a catch. I guess it can feel to some of us like a double-edged sword, because the more we know what we want, that makes the dating pool feel a little smaller, because to some people we are picky, or our standards are too high. But I think when your standards are too high. I think we know, when I include myself in this group of people. I have a tendency to be a perfectionist. And even I know that I have to work on not being unrealistic when it comes to dating, when it comes to meeting people with the hopes of finding a life partner. Not everyone's going to be 100% our ideal. It's impossible, because we are never going to be 100% someone's ideal. It's not possible. There's no such thing as perfect, ever. And I have to remind myself of that, y'all. I'm including myself in our group, okay? I get it. With that said, I think it's important to know exactly what you want in a person. And if you are in a relationship currently, or in a marriage, a long-term relationship, maybe this hopefully helps you in terms of growing in your spiritual journey, learning how to tap into your intuition. It helps you recognize what battles to pick in a relationship. Choosing your battles wisely, knowing when something is truly worth the growth and the discomfort, and when something is just more about ego. The ego is not a bad thing, everybody. I've talked about the ego before. The ego is not a bad thing. The ego is what helps us self-define ourselves, what helps us set ourselves apart as individuals from other people. The ego helps with that. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. That's my understanding, and I could be wrong, but that's what I've understood the ego, the role of the ego to be. I am me. But when we are so set on protecting, quote unquote, protecting ourselves against things because we want to preserve ourselves, sometimes we let the ego take over too much, take the driver's seat, take the wheel. And it wants to protect the self at all costs. But there may not actually be danger or a threat. We are just, because of our past traumas, because of our fears, we make something a bigger threat than it is, and we deem it a threat to our existence, a threat to our capital S self. And hopefully, by learning to tap into your intuition and learning to trust your gut more, which takes a lot of hard work related to forgiving ourselves, related to letting go of stories about ourselves that no longer serve us, perhaps based on past trauma. All that, I believe, contributes to helping us to trust ourselves more, to trust our souls, to trust our gut. And in relationship with somebody, romantic relationship, long-term relationship, I believe that only makes us better partners, better lovers. We listen more. We want to be listened to. And because we want to be listened to, we know the other person wants the same, because we recognize that we are in this together. So, I will share what a psychic told me, and I'm not going to mention who the psychic is. It's someone I admire. But their humanity showed up in the psychic reading. And I had this reading pretty soon after my breakup in 2024. And I think I wanted to, from what I remember, I wanted to just learn more how I'm going to get past the sadness, the grief of the breakup, and what was next for me. Because I did feel like I was about to enter a phase of my life when I was going to really like propel into greatness. And not greatness as in money or housing. I mean just personal success, just feeling more content. Y'all are going to get tired of me saying the word content, because if you heard my 2024 recap podcast episode, I used that word a lot, and I used it a lot, I think, in the first episode of 2025. But I was feeling that. I was feeling like things really stink right now. Things are really difficult right now after this breakup. I really don't know what to do next, but I know that something great is going to come for me. A great phase of my life is coming. And I wanted more clarity and more insight regarding that in this reading with this person. And I won't share the whole reading or what everything that was said, but I'll share one thing that they told me, because I mentioned the breakup, obviously, and they started talking about healing and working on yourself, focusing on yourself. But then they said, and I'm going to paraphrase them, and they know that in that reading, they know that I am a psychic medium, okay? They said, Juan, folks like us, we're not built for relationships. Folks like us, it's too much for us. And when they said that, all I could really see was their pain. There's some validity in what they were saying, but it's not something I buy. I don't buy that. And I felt that they were really speaking from their inner pain. And I believe, if my memory serves me right, they share with me a little bit about the relationships they thought were failed that they had been through. I think they had been through a divorce, but I'm not very sure. I could be wrong. But there were one or two major breakups that really, really hurt them. I knew that because they shared about it. So I wanted to share that with you because I think this brings up an interesting point. One that I disagree with, but one that's worth talking about. Some psychic mediums, some psychics, spicy opinion, warning, some psychics and some mediums take on the role of victim. And many times that word is appropriate, victimhood, because someone has done us wrong. But what I'm really talking about, that's sort of besides the point, because that can be true. But what I'm really talking about is when someone says, I'm an empath and I feel all things. I'm very sensitive to emotions and other people's emotions. Therefore, I cannot be in a romantic relationship. Or therefore, I'll fill in the blank. I can't think of another example. But for the sake of this podcast, let's talk about romantic relationship. And in so many ways, this psychic was telling me that because we do the work that we do, because we are sensitive to so many things, whether it be spirit, emotions, other people's thoughts and emotions, because we are sensitive in that way, we cannot handle romantic relationship. They're not meant for us. Those relationships are not meant for us. And I think that is so self-limiting, because I don't know, I refuse to believe that a psychic or medium can't be in a romantic relationship because they are doing the work that they do. And I refuse to believe that people, like some of you listening to this podcast, maybe you don't want to run a psychic business or a reading business, but you want to get better at tapping into your intuition. You want to learn how to trust your gut feeling more and talk to spirit. The better you get at that, and when I say better, I mean the more easily it comes to you because of practice. That doesn't mean you're going to be less of a relatable person, less of a personable human being to relate to. And I think there's this, again, I think it does come back to this mindset of victimhood where, I don't know, I don't think they meant it this way, this psychic, and I don't think they see themselves this way, but some psychics, like, I'm so evolved, no, here we go. There are two ways that psychics can approach this. One is a victimhood, where I feel all the things, therefore I want nothing to do with the things. And on the other hand, some people who are like, I am so evolved and I'm going to rise above the human experience. It's like, I'm going to curse, but as I usually do, I feel so shitty that I don't want to be part of any of that. I'm not worth, or I am not, it's not fitting for me to be part of any of that because it's all too shitty. Or I am the shit and I am better than these human experiences, these common experiences, these carnal experiences. And I think for some people, they live in the middle, where some people focus so much on their spiritual journey and it's so important to them, and rightfully so, that they don't feel the need to invest their energy into having sex with people, into falling in love with people, into getting into arguments with people, or into eating certain junk foods because they'd rather eat foods that help them have a better clarity of mind because of the way their body feels after eating in a day. Like, that's very valid. There's nothing wrong with that. But when there are these extremities, and you know that I'm not a fan of extremities sometimes, when there are these extremities of I am too sensitive to be in relationship, or I am too good to be part of human relationship, I think that those two extremities require some more inner reflection. And I think there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear there. There's a fear of getting hurt. And then there's a fear of seeming average, like an average human being. Like, why do you feel this need to be so elevated above other people, to be a valid, enlightened soul? And why do you feel this need to be so outside of the human experience of building relationships and romance and sex? Because why are you so afraid of getting hurt? And I'm not one to judge. I'm not judging either of these two things. Or am I? Maybe I am. I don't know. Maybe I am. I see fear. That's what I see when I hear about these two extremes. And I think those are people who need some self-TLC, tender loving care. Life is not easy. Romantic relationships are not easy. And even I'm learning. There was a time when I thought, I don't want to be romantically involved with anyone ever again because I'm going to get hurt again. And after a while, I decided, and I still struggle with this sometimes, but I have decided, finding someone with whom it clicks, it just works, and with whom I could possibly spend the rest of my life with, that is worth more pain, more emotional pain because other things didn't work. It's worth it. And I think we have to make that decision for ourselves. Is going through discomfort, uncertainty, because when we start dating somebody, we don't know if it's going to be forever. Heck, there are some marriages 10 years in that they have a big fight and they don't know if it's going to be forever. And maybe they'll repair things and they'll continue for another 50 years, 60 years. Well, that's a long time for a 10-year marriage. But you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's just about embracing uncertainty and not letting the pain of human experience define everything about human experience. And that's hard. That's a big statement for me to make because it's hard. It's difficult. And I think it's up to each of us to determine, is uncertainty and a possibility of feeling a little hurt when something doesn't go our way, is all that worth just continuing to find joy for ourselves? I think that's different than saying, I am too sensitive as a psychic. I am too sensitive because I'm tapped in, and so I don't want to get my feelings hurt by a breakup. I think that's a very different. I think those are two very different things, and I'm not sure if that comes across clearly, if I'm expressing myself clearly. So I'm going to repeat it one more time. On the one hand, embracing uncertainty, embracing discomfort when things don't go our way, versus not being involved in the human experience because we feel we are too sensitive and don't want to get our feelings hurt. And I think right now, in the moment we're living in, at least in American culture, US culture, there is a lot of talk about honoring your feelings. I feel sad, I feel angry. And I'm really happy that there is that discussion happening in the culture where we can be honest about our feelings and our emotions about a given thing or any given moment or a situation. And at the same time, our feelings don't define us. Our feelings are for the moment, and we are allowed to feel what we feel. But if we stay where we are feeling, if we continue to stay there, then where are the next steps? Where's the progress? And I say that about happiness too, feeling happy. Because happiness is a momentary feeling. That's my opinion. You can disagree. That's why I use the word contentment. For me, contentment has a connotation of something more long-term. Whereas I feel happy. I do feel happy now as I talk to you. But how do I explain it? Happiness, if I get all my happiness from the home I have, the person that's next to me, my dog, it has to do with dependability. If my feeling of happiness, if I hold on to that feeling of happiness in a way that's codependent, then I'm placing so much dependability on things that are not permanent. Does that make sense? And I think that's something I've learned as I have continued on my journey, as I am continuing on my journey, as someone who wants to grow spiritually, who wants to find inner happiness. And I know that's very contradictory to what I said. Maybe my definition of contentment is inner happiness, that regardless of what happens, that's hard to say. Regardless of what happens out in the world, I continue to be content because with the things that I can't control, they are going my way. Oh gosh, I don't know, man. It's confusing. My doggy is right here next to me. God forbid my doggy may not be with me anymore tomorrow or next month. I don't know that. But she makes me feel very happy being next to me. But if I make that happiness depend on her permanence next to me in my home, it's not realistic. Nothing truly ever belongs to me. This apartment that I'm renting doesn't really belong to me. I am borrowing it. This body, I am borrowing it. My family, they are their own people. They don't truly belong to me. They decide to be in my life. I decide to be in theirs. My friends, my phone, I bought it. I own it. But I'm not taking it with me when I die. The only thing I'm taking with me is my soul and the love I have for the things, the people I love. That's all I take with me. But the physical things, they don't really belong to me. I am borrowing these experiences. I am borrowing these things. And therefore, I have a responsibility to take care of them, to make sure that they are happy, to make sure that they are serving my growth and my happiness, but that I am also serving their growth and their happiness. It's a two-way street. So when it comes to a romantic relationship, maybe instead of taking it for granted that they are a permanent fixture in your life, Being thankful that you get to have them in your life. Being thankful that they have decided to be in your life. And again, I'll say it, not take it for granted that they're there, because they can decide any moment to leave, any moment, but they decide to stay. And so basing our happiness, basing our contentment in these things, these people being gifts to us, gifts that decide to stay, not gifts that we deserve. Does that make sense? And I think, excuse me, I'm gonna cough. I am over my sickness from the last episode, but I still have a lingering cough. I think in our culture, as particular U.S. culture, there is a sense of entitlement. Like I'll start with this. This is a controversial opinion, but I don't believe everyone's meant to be in a relationship for the rest of their life. I don't. That's like if I were to say everyone's meant to be single the rest of their life. I don't believe that either. Again, extremes. I believe everyone has the right to experience relationship, but who am I to say that I deserve a life partner? I don't know that. I would like a life partner. I would like to be in a relationship with somebody, but I'm not entitled to that. I'm just entitled to having access to that. Whether or not it happens, I'll have to see if it's my soul's journey or not. And sometimes, as much as I want to go on dates, and I sometimes do wonder, like, do I want to be in a lifelong relationship? Like, I would like to be, but is that really meant for me? Something tells me maybe I'm not meant for it. I don't really know that. And so I am not going to place my life happiness in the absolute certainty that I am going to have a husband for the rest of my life one day. I'm going to place my happiness instead in what I have to offer somebody, and what I have to offer life, and the things that I can do for myself. How can I be my own husband? How can I be my own best partner? How can I treat myself the way I want a future husband to treat me? I feel like I'm going off the rails right now, and I've gone in a lot of directions. But what I want to get back to is, just because you're on a spiritual journey doesn't mean you are entitled to certain experiences in your life. And it doesn't mean that you are not fitting for certain experiences in your life because of certain characteristics you have. Maybe you are sensitive, and that's okay. But someone will love you because you're sensitive. And it's up to you to work with your sensitivity in a way that does not sabotage someone else's experience of your relationship and doesn't sabotage your experience of your relationship. Because when it does that, that is when the ego is inflamed and wants to protect from a threat that is not there. You can have life experiences. You can have the human experience being a sensitive person, being an empathetic person, being a psychic, being someone who wants to grow on their spiritual journey. That doesn't exclude you from falling in love. You are not above falling in love. You are not above having sex because you have reached inner contentment, happiness on your spiritual journey. Maybe you'll find somebody who's on the same journey. That's the hope. Or someone who's at least open to it. And you'll find that person, you'll date, maybe you'll spend the rest of your life together. Maybe it'll break up in 2 years because there's something, you want kids and they don't want kids, or they do want kids and you don't. Or they want a big fancy house, they like expensive things and you really prefer not to have expensive things. There's so much to relationship than just the Prince Charming aspect. Than just, fill in the blank. I don't know what the female, there's Prince Charming, and then what's the other version of that for like a woman? I don't know. Having your princess, your queen. There's more to relationship than just those things. And there's more to relationship than your hangups. Because everyone has hangups. Everyone has limitations. Self-limiting limitations. Say that 3 times and not be redundant. Everyone's got them. No one's perfect. And just because you're on a spiritual journey and maybe you're going through the growing pains doesn't mean you're not lovable. Doesn't mean you can't love. So if a psychic ever tells you that you're not lovable without saying it, maybe they say it in so many different ways, I wouldn't listen to that. And if someone tells you that you don't have the tools to be in a relationship because you are evolving spiritually, or you are above being in a relationship, I wouldn't listen to that either. How about you just do whatever the heck you want to do? And if you decide you're above it, then you decide you're above it. But I think you're missing out. Unless you really don't want a relationship, and that's fine too. Again, not everyone wants to be in a relationship. But don't let that come from a place of fear. If you do not want to be in a relationship, let it come from a place of self-loving care. Like, I know myself. I know that a relationship is not for me. I am my best self when I'm not in a relationship. I feel most free when I'm not in a relationship. Whereas for other people, it could be, I feel free whether I'm not in a relationship or in a relationship, and I want to feel free with somebody else. These things come from a place of love, not being afraid of getting hurt, not being afraid of uncertainty. Life is uncertain. That's why I said when I was rambling on nonsensically about my dog, I borrow the experience of having my dog. I'm borrowing my apartment. I'm borrowing my phone. None of these things I own. Nothing in life is guaranteed. Nothing. Here are these stories, these readings I have with people who lose their children, who lose their parents in a split second without expecting it to happen. Nothing in life is guaranteed, and the best that we can do is embrace what we have and show up in these things, show up in these relationships, show up in our life from a place of honoring and loving ourselves. Whether you're on a spiritual journey or you're avoiding a spiritual journey, just come from a place of love. Because I said the latter because, hey, some people on this planet will not believe in anything spiritual for the rest of their life. That's okay. As long as they're doing it from a place of honoring themselves. I believe that is the journey they're meant to have. Just come from a place of self-love. With that, I wish you a happy Valentine's Day week. Whether you're single, you're in a relationship, or somewhere in between, even if you're in a relationship, do something for yourself. Treat yourself to a nice box of chocolates, to a nice little dinner. Treat yourself. You don't always need someone else to treat you. It's a nice bonus. But treat yourself this week. Do it. Because you deserve to feel love from yourself too. Take care and see you on the next episode. If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact, and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.